this week I wanted to get very vulnerable with you guys and talk to you a little bit about some of the challenges that I'm having in my training right now. I know that I wanted to be very behind the scenes, certainly share a lot of my highlights and some of the really cool things I hope will happen for me this year in my training, but also to be very real and share with you the lows and the difficulties and some of the challenges that come up when you're training for an ultra marathon. It's a really tough thing to do. As many of you guys may or may not know, if you haven't set out on this journey and you're thinking about it, you can expect some highs and lows, and definitely there's these cycles I think that sometimes happen in our training. And for me, I know right now I'm going through one of these low cycles. I've been hurt for about a month now. I've been dealing with a bit of an MCL issue. My knee has been really bothering me to the point where every run, it doesn't feel good. So I'm going out the door 6 days a week, logging about 110 kilometers a week right now, not feeling awesome. So with every single day that goes by in my training where I'm just not feeling great, does a couple things. I lose confidence, I get sort of sore and fatigued, I get sort of discouraged, I kind of question myself. As I get older, I'm kind of wondering how many more years can I do this for? I've got a really big plan and a lot of aspirations for this year. And so to kind of come into this year and have a little bit of setbacks and things like that in my training, it's been discouraging. I've got an ultra marathon coming up, a 60K road race in just under 2 weeks, the Calgary Marathon 60K, which I'm hoping to document and share with you that journey. But I'm getting close to that, and I feel like I've put in some good training, but I've also lost a bit of quality training in the last few weeks because of this knee issue. So there's a lot of these things that get in your way, not just physically, but then there's the mental component of training, I think, too, that sometimes can be tricky for us. And so I want to talk to you about sort of how I sort of deal with that. I'm definitely not sort of a master in that. I think that is one of my opportunities as an ultramarathoner this year, is to really find that next level in my mental game. I know last year I had a couple events where I felt like, man, I could have gave just a little bit more. And the reason why this channel is called FU DNF is because there was times I think in the past where I let my brain and my mental toughness sort of override my true capabilities. So a real big theme for my training this year is about sort of finding the ability to go beyond when you think you're done, go beyond when you're tired, go beyond when you're sore, not let sort of the narrative in your brain really dictate what sort of you can accomplish. And so for me, that's really the goal of this channel and this journey this year, is to really focus on that, because I know that's that next level I need to find for some of these events that I've sort of signed myself up for and really want to take to that next level, is doing that. So I'm intentionally looking for ways to put myself in uncomfortable positions, in situations that force me to just find that next level. And what I want to do is I'm going to take on a few of my runs this week. I want to just sort of give you sort of 3 of my theories, tips, if you will, on how I'm sort of dealing with those things and how I work through some of those mental challenges that come up as we go through these training cycles. I'm going to walk you through some of the things and some of the insights I have in this space. Join me on the run. So the first concept is this notion of the pain cave. The pain cave, or the hurt locker, whatever you want to refer to it, is this place where you get to where you're suffering, it sucks, you're hurting, you're breaking down, whatever. And I've raced a lot of marathons over the years, and one of the things I used to try and do when I was running marathons was avoid the pain cave, try to execute this perfect race where everything came together, felt amazing to the end. And what I realized over time was you can't avoid it. It's coming for you. And so you just have to look for it and embrace it. And then the more I got into the ultra marathon distance, there's absolutely no way you're avoiding the pain cave on multiple occasions for long periods of time. So in my training, that's something that I've been looking to do more and more, is find opportunities to go into the pain cave. Maybe that's through workouts, or going when the weather sucks, or when, putting yourself intentionally. But then I think sometimes we get brought into the pain cave through just like what I'm dealing with right now. I've got some injuries going on, kind of in this slump right now. So finding times to be in the pain cave, or spending more time in the pain cave, really gets you sort of callous, your mind callous to suffering. And I think that's a huge part of sort of being mentally tough when it matters come race day. So last year I was racing in this backyard ultra event. It's one of those last man standing where you just run loop after loop after loop, lots of suffering. And I managed to run with Dave Proctor, who's
a legendary runner from Canada. Ran across Canada in like 68 days, set the record. Just a beast. And we spent quite a few laps together talking about the pain cave and sort of how he works through discomfort. And he kind of shared with me some of the things he's learned through running with Courtney Dauwalter, who's also just a beast of an ultramarathoner, who's really known for suffering and can really, go into those dark places. In fact, she kind of embraces it, and he gave me this sort of methodology that he uses and that he learned from her that I've now sort of brought into my mindset. Is sort of like every time you go into the pain cave, it's like you've got a hammer in one hand and a chisel in the other. And the whole thing is every time you get to go in there and explore the pain cave, you can go deeper and you can build it and you can make it perfect, which is kind of a weird analogy. But to me, I find myself even, and he said like, sometimes he'll look at his hands and see like he's got, visualize a hammer in one hand and the chisel in the other. I've been doing the same thing sort of when life gets tough or when it starts to get hard in that run, things start to suck. I'll look at my hands and just remind myself that this time in the hurt locker, the pain cave helps. It will make me a better, stronger runner. And it's almost like you look forward to that time, which is really weird to say, but the more time you spend there, the more comfortable you get being in that place, the better you're going to be when it comes to race days. So the second thing I think that I like to ask myself, and when I'm kind of working through these mental struggles, is why? Why am I doing this? It's a simple question to ask, but when things get tough and it starts to suck and you're not feeling great, it kind of sounds more like, why the hell am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through all of this torture? But it's an important question to ask, because when it gets tough, you gotta remind yourself why you do this. What are you doing it for? And that helps you stay in the game. A lot of people quit when it gets hard because they don't have a strong enough reason to keep pushing forward. Are you doing it for your family? Are you doing it for yourself to try and prove that you've got a limit you've never found? Are you trying to lose weight? Are you trying to inspire the people around you? What are you doing this for? Get your why solid. There's a stat you probably heard that's less than 1% of the population has ever run a marathon. And another fact is that less than 0.007% of the population has ever ran an ultra marathon. And to me, that gives me motivation, knowing that I'm separating myself from over 99% of the population that just can't, won't do this. And sometimes when I'm like struggling, I remind myself that I'm trying to differentiate myself. I find that running transcends beyond just running. It takes me into the real world. And I remember someone told me one time, a friend of mine, she said, like running a marathon isn't the hard part. Getting to the start line of a marathon or an ultra marathon, that's the hard part, is putting in the work that allows you the ability to do that. So sticking with it for me is reminding myself of that stat. I'd also love to know how many people started to try and run a marathon and quit. It's kind of like the people that show up at the gym in January with New Year's resolutions and you don't see them by February 1st because they quit. It's too hard. So that fuels me, that helps me remind myself that I'm separating. So the third concept I wanted to give you is something I learned back in 2016. I ran Alberta, my home province in Canada, from the very top to the very bottom. It was 1,600 kilometers, 38 back-to-back marathons. Actually wrote a book, FYI, if you're interested, called Soul Runner, that documented that journey. But the point I'm trying to make is that there's lots of highs and there's lots of lows. And I had to develop this thinking that I sort of used, that I considered long and short. Sometimes I had to have a real long-term focus, and other times I had to think really short-term on days like today when it's raining, cold, garbage out, and you had to run anyways. So what I mean by that is when I talk about thinking long, there's days like where I just, what motivated me, what kept me going and sort of moving forward was this notion of like, man, what happens? I can't wait to finish this thing, like, you know, get to the end. How exciting that was going to be and how proud I would be of accomplishing that. That really kind of kept me motivated and excited and really focused on the end game, the end goal. But then there's times when if I thought like that, it just got so overwhelming, thinking, man, I got 1,000 kilometers left or whatever it was. It was so intimidating that I had to flip it. It was almost like, I just got to get to the end of this tree line today, or I just got to get through the next kilometer or whatever, you know, when you're at big lows. So to me, it's like being able to sort of balance both those things. Sometimes you got to think super long, like, you know, think about that goal. When you're training, think about what it's going to feel like to finish your race. And then sometimes when you're in those dark moments, just think about just getting through that. Get through the next block, get through the workout, get through the week, shorten your focus. So longer-term thinking really helps on the mindset.
Oh, there's one more thing I forgot to mention. If you're still struggling with your mindset and really stuck in this kind of low point in your training, one other way to get out of it real quick, just go buy yourself some new shoes. Works for me every time. FUDNF. See you on the next one.